Hey, say you have a beat you're proud of. It makes your head nod like this. But when you play it back on other system, it sounds weak, muffled, detached, muddy, slimy. A beat is not done before it's mixed. And in this video, I'm going to mix a beat from start to finish. So let's mix. I'm Subphotic, old school producer and mix engineer, giving you techniques and recommendations to level up your sounds and productions. And in this video, I'm going to use only the stock plugins that comes with Logic Pro X. So the first thing that I do in a mix usually is I make a static mix, as they say. I try as hard as I can to make all elements have their own place and get the volume and attention that they deserve. That's the static mix. And the first thing I reach for is the faders, and here you can look at the faders. So as you can see here, the kicks have been lowered a bit in volume, the snares remained, whilst the sub bass has also been significantly lowered in volume, and the bass texture has been lowered a bit as well. This is a result of tweaks back and forth in the mix. The main loop has been remained untouched, so that has been remained untouched together with the snare. So listen to these two together. They sound beautiful together. Okay. Next up, we have the alternative loops 1 and 2. They have been lowered a bit in volume respectively. Okay. And then we have the alt loop 2, which have been reduced a bit here. Let's see. And then we have the hits, also a bit down in level, but the alt loop and the sub bass are the two that has suffered the most reduction in volume. The hits, let's see where we have them here, for example. And then at the bus stage, we have the drum bus here, we have the bass bus and the instruments bus, and also the effects bus, which I have left untouched. As you can see here, a bit dip in volume on both bass and drums, and that's basically it. And then comes the panning, and I have left the kicks and the snares in the dead center. I have also left the main loop in the dead center, and also the alt loop, which is this right here. I have also left that dead center because both of these are basically stereo signals and they are quite significant in the mix as well. So I have chosen to leave them as stereo as possible, but in the middle, because there's information on both sides, on both those two loops. And the alternative loop here, which is a smaller element in the mix, I have panned that out a bit, even though it's a stereo sample. Let's listen. I have done something nifty here. I will come back to that. There's stuff going on the opposite channel, but I'll revisit that in just a moment. And finally, when it comes to the balance was already set when I made the beat, because I listened to which elements that needed to fit in to make a whole mix from the bottom all the way up to the top, and everything that should be in the mid-range. I had at least a hunch that this would be easy to mix. That was my goal. I developed sort of an intuition of what sounds good in the end. Okay, and also about panning, you have some panning on the verb sections here. We have the instruments verb that has remained untouched, but we have the snare verb, for example, is panned a bit to the side, and one of the instruments delay is panned a bit to the right. And if you like this video so far, hit the like button and let's move forward. Next up is processing. With processing, I mean EQ, compression, saturation, and send effects. When it comes to processing, the first thing you notice is that I haven't done anything with the kicks. Nothing. No EQ, no compression, nothing. But on the drum bus, On the drum bus, I have used a bit crusher and I have inserted quite a generous amount of clipping to make it tighter and more focused. I've used the gain knob to back down on the volume so you can listen with and without. Without first. Tighter and more focused. Okay, let's take a look at the snare here. Only thing going on there is a snare verb. You can listen in solo. Okay, so that's the snare. A bit of a reverb. I've used the chroma verb with a decay of 1.6 seconds, bit slower attack, and a pre-delay of 60 milliseconds. The airy setting, this one I found to be best sounding. I've also inserted an EQ to roll off the low end and roll off some high end. I often do that when it comes to reverbs in the mix to avoid muddiness and to cut away the stuff that is unneeded. Next up, and here's the bass texture. Here we have some processing going on. This is what I had from the BA1 synthesizer. Sounds like this. Oftentimes, my texturized bass is without much low end at all. I used to roll end my low end because I played that along with the sub bass, but in this case, actually, they don't play together. So I kept the low end and I've actually boosted a bit. I've cut the very lows and I've boosted a bit in the 80 hertz section. I've cut away a lot of the top end. I didn't need it in the context. You can listen with and without. Then it became almost like a lead synth, and I didn't want that. I wanted to be pulled back in the mix and yet having that sweet low end with a bit of distortion. Because you see here, I have a distortion plugin going on. I can take it from the top. So I have the EQ going on. And then I have the distortion, giving it more body, more weight. And then I have another EQ, but it doesn't do anything. I found that I didn't need it. And then there's a compressor. It's just to keep the level consistent because I noticed that it had a sort of a volume bump here and there in the transition between notes. So that's it for the processing of the bass with the texture. And then comes the sub bass, which I haven't done anything with. This one just drives the bottom here and there. I don't overuse it. It's not used in an exaggerated way at all. It's just laying there and... Okay, and moving on to the main loop. What's going on here is an EQ. I've cut away some low end and cut away some high end. And then a compressor to tame that snare that's popping off. And then an EQ with slight cutoff. And I think I automate the low cuts in the beginning with the first EQ. And there's a send effect, and it doesn't do anything except one thing, and that's right here. It happens only one time during the beats, and I like those small details that just happens once. I like that. You can hear it in the context of the mix. It just goes away and then it comes back again. And if you want more mixing tips, you can download my free guide. It's called the Subphotic Mixing Guide for Producers. The link is in the description. It's a fast 5-minute read. Next up, the alt loop. I've got some EQ going on here. The EQ is high cuts and a generous low cuts. And here's a pitch shifter going on. Some harmonies are coming out there. It's really sweet. And then we have the Alt Loop 2, which is this one. I only have an EQ here, doing some boost in the 4K area and a generous amount of low cut. Just want to comment on that. I have a send effect going into a standard quarter note delay with a decent amount of feedback. And what it does is that this is panned the opposite direction. So when it hits, and then it slides to the other side of the mix. Like so. Like that effect. Then we have the last piece of the puzzle is the hits, as I call them. It goes like this. I have an EQ here, and this is actually an idle EQ. It doesn't do anything, but the compressor does compress quite a bit just to control the dynamics a bit. The bass bus has a bit of compression from the kicks, so it's a bit of a compression. Let's see. 5 decibels of gain reduction from the kick, just to make sure that it doesn't clash anything. And then we have the mix bus, where I have a compressor going on, stock Logic compressor, emulating the SSL G bus compressor. Some slight movements here with a slow attack and a fast-ish release, and 1.5 ratio, just to give it a bit of a glue. And I have another compressor, and this has a low pass filter, so it doesn't compress what's beneath 60 hertz, which gives another type of compression. These are actually 2 bus compressors working in tandem. One of them takes everything, and the other takes only what's from 60 hertz and up. And then I have this tube EQ. It's just to insert some vibe. I just run it through it. I don't do much. I boost a bit in the high end on 12 kilohertz. And I also attend at the same amount, and I do the same thing at the low end at 30 hertz. I just give it a bit of a smiley curve, but that's really subtle. On the master bus, I have a bit crusher working slightly. Slightly was an understatement, so it works quite hard, but I use it also to drive up the volume because the mix is quite soft. It hits at -6, -10, somewhere there. So I just used those last plugins to boost the gain. I could have done this in the gain staging stage, but I didn't have the time. I did it really quick. And then comes the limiter that does some gain reduction. Some gain reduction here and there, especially when the snare hits, because the snare is quite hard on this one. And then finally an EQ. The EQ is just taking down a bit of the low end, lifting a bit of the top end with a linear phase EQ in stereo mode. And that's it for the processing. And when this is done, the mix is done, and the volume is also loud enough. And with this last limiter, the beat is basically mastered, because I can now release it on and publish it wherever I want. I can send it to artists, and they can do their stuff on it. And when I get some vocals back, I would turn off that limiter and mix the vocals with the beat, and then have it mastered as a separate stereo file. And if you're interested in the future of this beat, check out this video right here, because here I have a really skilled rapper, Norwegian rapper called Big Wolf, and he is doing his thing on this beat. You should check it out. I mix the vocals, I make them fit into the beats. And if you're still here, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you in the next one. Peace!